Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report presented by Great Days Outdoors magazine, the first podcast to bring you the local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I'm Butch Theory, and I'm joined today with Captain Bobby Abruscato, the man, the myth, the legend, the marshal of the Mississippi Sound.
Hey, say that again.
How we doing, Cap?
Hey, I'm good.
That was pretty good.
You did good, man.
Good. I didn't even plan that.
Second career as an auctioneer.
I didn't practice it at all.
Yeah, you did good.
That was funny. How have you been doing, buddy?
Good, man. I'm doing good. We've had, since we talked last week, I was the guest on here, and the fishing continues to be great. We fortunately didn't get anything out of this last storm, and to speak of, and
right.
That would affect anything. Of course, the big story, at least for me, is we've had this stretch of warmer weather now, and with that, the water temperature's come up a little bit. Too warm.
That little cold tease was just a tease.
I know, but we got something right around the corner.
Thank goodness. It was nice this morning.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 58 here this morning.
That's right. That's it. I walked the dogs before I went on my trip. I walked out with just my fishing shirt on, and I had to walk back in to get my sweatshirt,
Yeah.
But we're going to have that cold weather, and the water temperature came up a little bit, but not enough to throw them out of the pattern that they were in. And the hardest thing I'm running into right now is I don't know which end of our area to go to. Some mornings I've been up in the northern end, and then the wind changes a little bit, and I go on the southern end, and I'm having great trips on both ends.
You can't beat that.
Yeah, this just had really, really good trips. So I got nothing to complain about, man. It's been good. And again, like you said, we got this stretch of good weather coming, and it's only going to get better.
I think we were saying it's going to blow a little bit on Saturday.
Yeah. But if you're going to be inside, if you're going to fish on the inside, even though snapper season's open, I guess you're going to talk. I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But that wind direction is not bad in our area. We're supposed to have northeast, and if you're going to have it, that's a pretty good wind direction to have.
True.
Even though it is going to be well up in the double digits, so I think you'd be able to get out if you wanted to and
get tucked in somewhere
and still catch some fish, which is the beauty of this fall pattern, because you can fish the shallow protected areas, and it's where the fish are staying active all day.
Sure. So, what are water temperatures looking like right now?
We got up to about 70, depending on where you were, give or take 75 degrees this past week, and that was at both ends of the bay. I was getting 75, and that's up from 70. Now, you got to be a little careful because the transducer's reading surface water temperature, and that's going to be a little warmer than the actual true entire column. You know what I'm saying? Because it's going to warm up with the sun on it first. But still at 70, between 70 and 75, we're still in that fall pattern type deal. So we're at 75, but it's going to start, we had that cool night like you just mentioned last night, and then we're going to have a stretch of really cool weather. It'll be right back down to 70, give or take, and we're going to be right back where we were a couple of weeks ago. I
know you've said it on here before, but it was probably last year about this time. What water temperature are you looking for, like for fish to start transitioning into the tidal rivers and the shallower water and things like that?
Well, right now we're getting what I call like into this fall, where we've transitioned into what I consider a fall pattern. And with that, there'll be the fish that I'm catching right now, and they're going to be at the flats, the shallow water adjacent to the mouths of the rivers, drain areas and things like that. And that's shallow water. That's all shallow water fishing. I mean, I haven't fished in water deeper than probably 4 feet, and that's even pushing it in the last 3 weeks. That water temperature is that 62 to 75 degree range. Mm-hmm. We're right in the middle of that right now. Okay. Even though I mentioned it's up to 75, that's kind of just a little spike. It's going to drop back down. So, so that's what we're looking at there. And then as far as when they go in the next big true pattern change will be when we get our first sets of freezes, which is usually the end of November. You'll get that water temperature get under 62, and that's when they'll really get in the rivers big time.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's where that same fish that'll actually move into those. They'll move out of that shallow stuff and move into the rivers, the tidal rivers.
Sweet, man. That's good stuff. We got a good report coming this week, guys. We're going to talk to Captain Richard Rutland and Dusty Hayes, and we're going to head on down and talk to Chris Vecsey, see what he's been doing over there at Sam's Bait and Tackle. This week's show is brought to us by Great Days Outdoors. If you hunt or fish Alabama or the Deep South, you know that it is different down here. Spawning seasons, patterns, and food sources are not the same as other areas of the country. At Great Days Outdoors magazine, Southern outdoor writers pick the brains of the best Southern hunters and anglers and give you the best how-to, where-to, and when-to articles along with so much more. Pick up a Great Days Outdoors magazine subscription and become a better Southern outdoorsman. Great Days Outdoors magazine can be found at your local Barnes & Nobles, Books A Million, Tractor Supply Company, Rural King, Bass Pro Shops, or you can save and buy online at greatdaysoutdoors.com. All right, Captain Bobby, let's get our first report. Let's head on down. This will be the first surf report we've had since we have beaches back. Let's head on down to Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Fort Morgan area. Let's see what old Captain Dusty Hayes is up to. What'd you say, Cap?
What's up, guys?
Oh, man, you glad to be back to fishing or what?
Oh, yeah. I'm actually sitting in Atlanta at the moment, headed north for the mountains for a few days. But yeah, the beaches are back open. You know, they had told us November for a lot of the public beaches, but they did good and fixed all the ramps up and all the boardwalks and all that stuff and got everything accessible for the most part. Everything from Perdido Pass on both sides to, you know, Romar through Gulf Shores. I'm not sure about a few of the street accesses in Gulf Shores, but Mobile Street and all that stuff's back open and back fishing. And fishing's been good. I'm seeing a lot of people out and about, guys catching jacks off the beach, big Spanish off the beach. I had some big Spanish jumping yesterday, chasing bait in the surf. And the whiting bite, you know, typical October, the whiting bite, it almost doesn't matter where you are. You know, you'll catch them. Some areas are better than others. You know, some areas are on fire, but even a spot where it's not as plentiful with them, you'll still catch them. Some good sized ones. And with that dirty water, you have some of the southern kingfish, which people call ground mullet, and, you know, other names for them, but they're mixed into the whiting, and they're all kingfish. They're all pretty much the same fish. They'll mix in there with them, and some good size in those too. Lots of flounder being gigged and caught on rod and reel. Guys, you know, walking the beach looking for structure, fishing West Pass, especially towards, you know, the west. Lots of flounder laid up on the beach, and the flounder bite, it seems like we've got a lot of good size ones this year, and I think those change in regulations is helping out a lot as far as helping us see some bigger fish from here and to the future. But lots of redfish showing up too, you know, especially to the west, which is typical. You know, they're there throughout the year, but it's starting to get a little more plentiful, and even some in the Orange Beach area around the pass and all that stuff. And that's a good sign for the fall redfish run, is when we start getting them around Perdido Pass and, you know, up and down the beach through Orange Beach. Then that means they're kind of everywhere. So once it gets into, you know, November, December, you'll see those numbers jump up on the bigger redfish. But yeah, and it's definitely pompano. It's pompano time. That little cool weather we had after the storm, after Sally, after the first storm, did us some good, cooled the water off a little bit. And there's still a lot of dirty water up and down the beach, but it's cleaning up quickly. It was kind of murky yesterday. I fished close to Perdido Pass. It was, you know, a little murky right on the beach, but the whiting didn't seem to care. And the green water was right on the sandbar, and that was in the morning. When I came back through around noon, the water had cleaned up nice. There's, you know, a few muddy spots, but for the most part throughout Perdido and Orange Beach, what I saw got really nice green water, clear water again. So, and I saw west of Perdido Pass was really clean this morning. As long as we don't get anything too crazy happen, it should be pretty much game on fishing from here on out.
Dusty, have you seen since the storm and just getting back on the beaches, any big surprises in the contours or the shape of the beaches or the bars or anything like that after the storm?
Absolutely. There's been a lot of stuff change. Most of it, you know, for the good. A few spots looked good before, might have filled in, but it's a give and take situation when something like that happens. There's always upside to it. There's been lots of new structures, all kinds of new little cool bars and cuts from like everything west of Perdido Pass to west of Perdido Pass all the way to Fort Morgan, all kinds of new stuff, and it gives a revamping. I know we talked about this before, but you know, it kind of, a lot of the fish, like the whiting and stuff that live on that beach, they don't go anywhere. Like a pompano may be resident to the beach, but he may have a few mile home range, and then you have your migrating pompano. And the redfish, you know, he may have in the summertime, he may have a couple mile home range up and down that beach. But a lot of those fish are moving. They're not resident fish. They're moving, whether they're chasing bait or doing whatever they're doing. And so a lot of the stuff like the whiting that lives on that beach and doesn't go anywhere, you know, they may get pushed elsewhere, but it kind of, some of the holes they may lived in that get fished day after day after day, you know, may have filled in, may have moved them, and it kind of puts a fresh crop in there and gives them a break. So a lot of these heavily fished spots, you know, those fish see pompano rigs and shrimp and fish bites day after day, and they'll still fool one of them, but a lot of them they get smart on you. You'd be amazed the fish are there even when you're not catching them. That movement allows everything to kind of start from
reset.
And, and everybody's, I mean, I've talked to lots of people, and I mean, they're catching fish up and down. So I saw there's a fellow that comes in the shop a lot, and I see him out on the beach in the mornings, and he posted on Facebook this morning saying, you know, 4 hours of nonstop action. He didn't say what or, you know, what he was catching, but I know he usually walks, and he catches a lot of bluefish and Spanish and redfish and stuff like that. Good reports from everybody I've talked to.
Well, that's great news, man. That's good to hear. And I'll tell you, you see that with your beach fishing like that, and the same thing, boat fishing, and is exactly what you're talking about. When you get these changes and stuff, it kind of mixes everything up, for lack of a better word, and you see things like that happen. And I think the other thing you touched on too that was really important is you get that water temperature drop. And I think when you start getting down there, 70 degrees or so is what it got down to. And that really kept us, I would think, especially on that beach, would keep that shallow water bite like that going well into the day.
Yesterday morning, it still kind of topped out around, 8 o'clock, which is typical. I mean, it's still kind of warm and the water wasn't that cold. I mean, it had a little bit of bite to it, but nothing, it wasn't chilly by any means. So as it gets later into the fall, that especially late October, depending on the cold fronts, but November, December especially, I'll go out there at 1 o'clock sometimes, and if the tide's coming in, I won't go until the tide comes in. If it's high noon, that's fine. They'll bite. In the middle of the day, that might be the best bite. It all depends on that tide, and you get the same thing in the spring during the pompano run when it starts. That incoming tide means more than anything. That water's cool. They don't care if it's 1 o'clock or 4 p.m. They're going to bite when that tide's coming in. So that does make a huge difference too. Is looking into the fall, I'm not as much worried about being out there first thing early in the morning as I am being out there when that tide comes in. You'll catch fish all day. You can catch them at high noon, but even yesterday, that bite was early just because that tide was going out after a certain point. And once that tide swapped, it kind of slowed down. And it's still warm. That sun's still pretty warm during the day. So hopefully that as it cools down, that'll change and we get into that point of the day or point of the year where we can fish all day.
Dusty, you were talking about, water being off color. And I always get curious when I hear about you guys talking, the areas east of the mouth of the bay. What do you consider, from like just judging from how far you can see down in the water, what do you call off color or muddy water? A foot of visibility or 2 feet of visibility? What do you call? I'm just kind of curious. It fascinates me what they, on that side, what's considered off color versus
no doubt.
On the west side.
Yeah, the main thing is sometimes even when the water's green, like in the springtime, we hadn't had a lot of rain some years, and you get those southeast winds and that water is still green. It may be rough, and it's got that green color to it though, and we can still see into the water, and that's the main thing is looking for that green colored water. If it's off and it's not perfect crystal clear like it would be, like say in Navarre or something like that, I honestly prefer that, just because when it's really clear, the visibility is high, and those fish, especially a pompano, they're sizing your rig up to the T. And if there's something they don't like, you got a higher chance of them not taking your bait. The dirtier water, the main thing I don't want is just that chocolate milk, fresh water, stirred up, just mud looking stuff. I'll still catch fish in that. I've caught pompano in it. I've caught redfish in it. I've caught flounder in it and everything else. But 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a catfish showdown. And, if you're willing to weed through the catfish and stingrays and whatever else and the little croakers and stuff, that's fine. But if you're going to go up and down the beach and look for a certain spot to fish, the greenish colored water, it don't have to be crystal clear, but just the greenish pea colored water is what we're looking for. That's what makes a huge difference as far as seeing more variety of fish and a better bite with less trash is that higher salinity green water for sure.
Typically, how far, if you saw the muddy water you're talking about, typically how far would you have to go to? I mean, I guess it probably depends on how hard the wind's blowing too and what kind of rain. But do you have to could you walk to cleaner water, or do you have to load up and move by vehicle? Is it that kind of move?
It'll vary. You can do both sometimes. Like, yesterday it was dirtyish up close, but there's green water, on the sandbar, and I could reach it with my 11-foot rods. But, all the whiting and stuff were actually up close in the dirty water, and the catfish were out in the clean water. So it's dirty as far as you can see, but with the wind and the tide, especially being right there close to a path, they might fight each other. Like we had a swell coming out of the south, but the wind was blowing north. You got the tide going out. So that stuff's kind of swirling around, and it's going to do what it's going to do. There's times where you have outgoing tide and a southwest wind and you're on the east side of the pass, so that dirty water's coming right at you. Within a couple hours, it's going to be dirty there. So sometimes you can kind of predict what it's going to do and where it's going to be, but then other times you have a mass amount of rain, like we had all that rain from the storm and all that dirty water still in the bay. be crystal clear one day and then a slight wind change and it's going to be dirty the next. So you just got to be willing to possibly get in the truck and ride a couple miles down the beach and just look for good water.
Yeah, that's good. Great information, right? That's the great thing about this podcast, man. You learn so much about that. That's incredible. That information that's available right there, man. That's just, that takes years to learn that stuff.
Yeah. Dusty, you said something about there was a couple spots that were really good for whiting and a couple that weren't. Are you seeing anything? Why was that spot good and why was the other spot bad?
This is something that, and somebody may argue with me on this, and that's fine. This is just my personal opinion, stuff I've kind of noticed over the years, kind of kept a log on where I catch fish and when. Mm-hmm. And it seems that like the whiting will spread out further east and west. I'm talking very locally. I'm not talking about, Navarre, Pensacola. I'm talking about our island, from the Orange Beach Pass to Fort Morgan.
Right.
As it's warmer, those fish will head east and west. You'll get them on the east side of the pass or even Perdido Key, and you'll get them closer to Fort Morgan. And they'll be all over, obviously. They're not all moving. But it seems like as it gets colder and colder and colder into winter and throughout the fall, those fish condense from west of Perdido Pass to like even the West Beach. You can almost cut it in half. And I'm not saying there's not whiting elsewhere. It seems like you'll have a hotter bite as it gets colder. That little, whatever you want to call it, that little range of their biting narrows down. And you go like in the dead of winter when there's guys not catching anything on the beach, like a whiting here or there, you can go to that state park pier and fish beside it. And there you won't catch a whiting, but the guy standing up on the pier will catch fish. And I don't know, my guess is that that pier, holds heat maybe because there's structure or whatever it may be, and they relate to that structure as it gets colder. I've sat out there in the middle of January, it's freezing cold, fish beside the pier with shrimp, fish bites, ghost shrimp, everything not got touched, but walk up on the pier and they're crushing them. And I'm not saying every whiting goes there, but it seems like that happens every year. If I'm going to particularly whiting fish, as it gets later into the fall, I'm going to head, more towards that center of the Gulf Shore State Park area. And, you notice the fish numbers will get higher. If somebody said, hey, I want to go whiting fish, and just catch whiting, right now I'm going to go anywhere from like the state park, probably, even to midway down Fort Morgan, like Mobile Street, and then as it gets colder, I'll narrow that as far as where I'm going. Now in the summer, that Orange Beach area, there's some resident fish that just kind of hang out there. But if I want to catch a bunch of them, I know I want to go really far west towards Fort Morgan.
That's good stuff, man. That's a lot of good information. We got to get that onshore tip from you before we let you go, though. This week's onshore tip is brought to us by the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Marine Resource Division. Alabama announces weekend fishing for red snapper for private anglers. Marine Resources Division, yay. I know. Yeah, it'll be open weekends for red snapper fishing for private recreational anglers beginning Saturday, October 17th, 2020. The weekends will consist of Saturdays beginning at 12:01 a.m. and run until midnight on Sundays. The weekends will remain open until the Alabama private angler red snapper quota has been met. What you think for an onshore tip for us this week, Captain Dustin?
Yeah, so back to flounder, something different that you don't see a lot of people do here, and you can get on YouTube. I know a lot of people watch YouTube nowadays and look up John Skinner, but he's in the Northeast. He's the, I guess you could call him the Bama Beach Bum of the Northeast. He's well known up there for everything from stripers to bluefish, which bluefish is a trophy fish up in that area, especially for flounder. And there's a rig, and it probably has kind of like a high-low rig and different names, but they call it the John Skinner rig, and it's a bucktail jig anywhere from a 1/2 ounce to a 1 ounce. You can actually go heavier if you're fishing a bigger depth, but that's, a different day. As far as the surf goes, a 1/2 ounce to a 1 ounce on a bucktail jig. And it can be like the Berkeley Fusion jigs, Spro bucktail jigs. It can be something you tie yourself. It could be a little bigger pompano jig, but you're going to do that on the bottom, have your bucktail on the bottom, go up about a foot, 8 inches to a foot. And above that, you're going to have a loop. And on that loop, you'll connect a J-hook. You can use like an O'Shaughnessy style, all-purpose live bait, whichever hook you prefer. I usually do about a size 1 to a 1/0. And this is going to vary depending on the bait you're going to put on your top hook. Now, I've seen you can vary this multiple ways. Some people will put on the back of your bucktail, they'll do be anything from the Fishbites, Bob's Your Uncle, curly tail things. It can be a strip of Fishbites. It could be a gulp shrimp. It could be a gulp curly tail. You got a lot of, options there. And same thing on your top hook. A lot of guys do gulp shrimp on that top hook. They'll do a gulp swimming mullet on the top hook. Fishbites has their little Fight Club grubs. that work good, various different things on that. And you can really kind of play with it, but it's something that works good for flounder. And the surface is something different. They're not used to seeing it all the time here. It's going to be a bucktail jig on the bottom though. Whites, pink, chartreuses, all that stuff works great. And then you'll go up, like I said, about a foot, J-hook, and you'll have a strip bait on there, or you'll have a gulp or something of that sort. I prefer doing a plastic, tinted plastic like gulp on my top hook, and then I'll do like a piece of Fishbites on my jig as a trailer. Cut baits work good too, chunks of whiting or something like that. But, you get a lot more pinfish and stuff like that pecking at it, which isn't a terrible thing. I feel like sometimes that, we talked about this a few weeks ago, the cut bait, sometimes that all the pinfish and croakers or whatever following it around draws a little more activity to it, attention to it. But
chums them up a little bit.
Yeah, but sometimes it's a little too much, so you feel them pecking at it constantly. So, but yeah, that's just a different rig, something that works really good. You can do it in the surf. You could do it off, the pier. You could do it offshore on, shallow water structure for flounder, around the oil rigs, all kinds of stuff. It's a flounder killer for sure. And you'll catch other things on it as well.
There you go, Capt and Bobby. That's how you catch flounder.
Hey, believe me, I'm soaking it up, man. I'll take any. I'm thinking to myself, okay, now see, I know I got some of those there, and I got to go get some of these. And
have to do a tutorial to how to make that rig.
Hey,
for
Dusty,
you.
I can tell you right now, brother, if it works, if I use it and it works, I can guarantee you it's a winner. I can tell you, if I can catch flounder, it's a winner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. It's something fun and different, and the bucktail jig, people get scared of it just because it's big and bulky, and they think flounder. And I myself am the worst. I like small, compact bait. It don't matter. Even bass fishing, I'll throw a lot of stuff that's 2 and 3 inches quite often, but they can eat a 20-inch flounder can eat a pretty large bait, and a half ounce to 1 ounce bucktail jig is nothing for them to swallow for sure.
No, Captain Richard's been doing all that tagging for like we were talking about earlier for the CCA and C-Lab. And he was saying, 6 or 8 or a 9-inch mullet ain't nothing for a decent sized flounder. It's kind of like a trout. They're just, they don't know how big they are.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. I was just thinking yesterday, I caught and I've done this before, but I think this might have been the smallest. We just mentioned trout, but I caught a trout yesterday on a topwater, and I've seen it before, but this trout was the same size as the topwater, man.
Crazy. Kamikaze.
So you can't be afraid to use a big bait.
No, not at all.
No, sometimes that's the weeds out. There's days trout fishing off the beach or anywhere. You'll throw small bait thinking that everything eats small bait, elephants eat peanuts, but sometimes they want that bigger profile. I throw bigger stuff in the winter when it's slow, just because that big trout, she might only want one meal all week. That big bait might be it. So full believer, and you got to throw big stuff sometimes.
Yep, that's right, buddy. Well, that's an awesome report, Captain Dusty. If people
really
want to get up with you. And,
great info, Dusty, man.
That was a lot compacted in. I was sitting on the edge of my seat the whole time. If folks want to book a trip with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you, Cap?
You can give me a call or text me at 678-897-0167.
Appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you next time. Be safe.
All right, guys.
Have a good trip. You going fishing up there?
Yeah, I'm going. We're going up to Blue Ridge. I'm going to do some trout fishing in the mountains, and hopefully find a smallmouth on the Depaola. Not get in trouble by the warden. And by that, I mean the girlfriend.
Right.
It's going to be really impressive, Dusty, if you come back with a report of you catching pompano up there. That'll be really impressive.
Might follow you up there.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I'd be impressed myself, honestly. That'd be something different.
Sure, no doubt, buddy. Well, good luck, and you guys be careful.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right, Butch. Now we get to talk to my partner, the Mobile Bay Madman.
I like that one.
Captain Richard. Hey, if you had never – he gets his name when you see him dock that boat. I can tell you that.
That's true.
And drive it. I don't know where he learned to drive a boat like that. I don't know, where he got all that speed from. But
you can't teach that.
Yeah, you can't.
That's just born into you.
That's it. It's like your lab we were just talking about.
That's right.
It's bred into
That's
them.
right. What'd you say, Captain Blood?
Oh man, nothing to it. Just up here at my boat shed, getting finished up, cleaning the boat up from the day, and getting ready for tomorrow. Going to do some cobia tagging tomorrow with the C-Lab and CCA. So hopefully they'll cooperate. That's been I know everybody's been asking me about laying this year. It's been a very slow year for me. It has not, and I don't know if it's the result of these couple of storms we've had or or what, but it's been a slow year, and I didn't expect that at all. So it's going to be tough. We'll see. But good news is I only have 6 tags to put out this year, so doesn't sound like I have to catch a whole lot of fish to break any records, you know.
No doubt. Well, hope you can find some for sure. It's definitely late for that. I enjoyed some of that last year. I hope that turns around. Maybe it'll give us something to do in November and December this year.
We'll see. But I tell you what, I've been doing a lot of here recently is I've been flounder fishing. We're acoustically tagging flounder with University of South Alabama Marine Sciences, in the Sea Lab. Dylan Keene is the PhD student that's in charge of it. It's a really neat deal. You can go on my Facebook page and see I went live last week on Facebook and went through the whole tagging process so people can see what we're doing. But been doing a lot of that in the tidal rivers, Dog River, Fowl River, Mobile River. I tell you, those flounder are just as finicky as a speckled trout or a redfish can be at times. This week is proof of it. Last week, I think we had 2 days last week. We tagged 15 fish in 2 days last week. And this week, I think we're only at 5 in 2 days, two or 3 days this week, so it's funny. We're fishing the same areas, doing the same thing.
What changed on that?
Get a little bit finicky. I don't know. We're a little bit lighter tide this week. But there again, I haven't seen like a slack up in the current too bad. Some of the areas we've been fishing, but it's just not as strong of a tide because we're kind of going into a nip today and through the weekend. I think it's going to kind of straighten back up on Sunday. I'm not real sure, man. It's flounder or daggum. They're like unicorns out there, you know what I mean? Just lucky to catch them. So I feel. I tell you one thing we did learn that we've been doing that's pretty neat is everybody's heard us on here talking about the bait, finding finger mullet being the key to being successful with that. And this year we've been using live pogies, mostly been catching them in the tidal rivers. I've been running up river and then running back down and fishing the mouths of these rivers. But I've been running up river and just finding pogies flipping, and they're great. They're like 3 to 4 inches. We're not talking about those big giant ones that we catch down there by the Gulf. Up in the rivers, they're holding some smaller, like I said, 3 to 4 inch pogies, and they work really, really good. They stay alive great in the live well all day long. You don't ever have to worry about them dying off. And then they swim really hard on the hook all day. They don't wear out after about 2 or 3 casts like a finger mullet kind of will. Finger mullet doesn't give up and die, but that pogie, it just wants to swim much, much harder than the mullet does. And, man, we've had very good success on that.
Those pogies you were mentioning, you told me that the other day. That was good to hear. That I didn't realize that they'd stay alive that well. That was good to hear. I just, we don't use them a whole lot. When you told me how well they stayed alive, that was really interesting because, like you just mentioned, you find them some of the places and it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to fill up a live well with them.
No, heck no. Catching bait's always kind of one of the hardest functions of flounder fishing. And that's been one refreshing thing about this year is that we haven't had to spend near the time catching bait every day when we've been using these pogies, and heck, if you get lucky and make a good cast, sometimes we had one day last week, I threw the net one time and I blacked out the live well and had enough bait to last us the entire day and then threw out a pile of them afterwards,
Wow.
when we got finished up. So,
nice.
I tell you another little trick too, to catching those pogies I use for the smaller ones that we're catching and being in the shallow water in these tidal rivers. I'm using a little bit smaller net. I'm using an 8-foot. I think it's a 3/8 inch mesh net. The thing to do is to sneak up on them. They can hear the boat movement, and I even turn off my sounder on my GPS. On my Ray Marine. I even turn that off. And we'll get on the trolling motor and you'll see them flipping and you just want to bump real easy up to them. If you can, use the wind a little bit to help you drift into them so you're not making that much noise, and you'd be real surprised how much better you can catch them doing that way. It takes a little bit more time to make one throw, but it's definitely worth it because they're just a spooky little fish. So
beats the heck out of chasing them all over the place.
No doubt. That one throw will count.
Yeah.
Well, what else, man? I saw you went and caught some snapper and some how big was it? How rough was it in the contender that day?
So we went on this past Monday. Early morning, it was great. It was nice and smooth. I would say maybe 2 foot, and it started blowing a little bit out of the west. By the time we came back in, it was maybe 3 foot. I said it was a great day of weather, but the contender ride's good. So it's got to be real bad for me to say it was a rough day,
Yeah,
so
no doubt.
I have no complaints on the boat. I tell you, the interesting thing about the trip was the first 4 spots that I went and checked were not there. I did not mark a single thing on the bottom, didn't mark any bait, didn't mark anything.
Think that was hurricane related?
Gone. Oh, it has to be 100% hurricane related. I was fishing the northeast corner of that Hugh Swindle reef zone, which is kind of just past where the ships are, kind of about on the same longitude as or latitude, I'm not sure which, but as where the bridge, I know where the bridge rubble is.
Yeah.
So that's about how far out I was, and I couldn't find any of my spots in that one little area. Like I said, I had about 4 or 5 spots, couldn't find any of them, and I ended up bumping over to the east about 10 miles. I had to make a pretty good little run. I ran about 10 or 12 miles to the east to a spot. I don't even think I'd ever fished this spot before that we went and fished. It was something I just marked while I was over there one day. And luckily I had some great fish on it. We had, I think we had one that was close to 20. I think it was 19 and a half pounds. We had 2 that were like in the 14-pound range, another in the 12-pound range, and then just some more of those better eater-sized fish that are that 4 to 6 pound range to finish out the box. We did get a little bonus fish. Got actually 2 bonus fish. We caught my buddy Wesley Hallman caught a Magnum beeliner. Nice. While we were there, and then I caught a real nice black snapper on it's probably about an 8 or 9 pound black snapper on a live croaker.
That's a good one.
So I tell you, it's funny about those black snapper. The people always say they love those croakers, man, and they sure do. Because we've been using live pogies to catch all of our other fish, and boom, I put that croaker down, and boom, that daggum black snapper jumped all over it. Kind of funny,
Yeah, that's a nice little bonus there for sure. Well, Snappers open all weekends now until we reach the quota. So what do you think, or what did you notice that you were like, yep, that's why we call it good fish? Was it bait, or were the fish right over the structure? Were you guys pulling off a little bit? What were a few keys to your success catching those nice snapper? Did you notice anything in particular?
So we had great bait, took our time catching bait, went back behind the fort, like Pelican Bay, I guess, behind Fort Gaines, going towards Sand Island, and caught some real nice pogies. Probably had about 40 or 50 real big pogie, what I call a magnum size pogie. Mm-hmm. We were using real long leaders, about 8 foot long leaders. Went a little bit light on our fluorocarbon. I was using 40-pound fluorocarbon leader. Light lead, I think we were using like 6-ounce weights, about as light as you can get away with.
Yep. And
we were fishing them real high. And most of the time you can look at your bottom machine when you get over these structures, and you can tell where the bigger fish are. They're going to be a more dense color on your bottom machine, what they call a hard return.
Yep.
And you can see where they are. And I think we were in about 60 or 70 foot of water, and the fish were in the bigger fish were way up over the structure in that 30 to 40 foot range. And we were using real light hooks too. I think we were using 5/0 owner MTU lights for our circle hooks. And I think that's what did the trick, was using those longer, lighter leaders. And of course I was using the trolling motor as well, which I think lower unit clicking in and out of gear definitely probably alerts them that you're there to an extent. So I think that trolling motor really came into play as well.
I'm glad you guys got to get out there and catch some snapper. I think that's just a testament to our state management fishery and how well it's doing.
Oh yeah, and I tell you what, just to speak to that, I got the opportunity to take Chris Blankenship, who's the director of conservation for the state of Alabama, and Scott Bannon, who's the director of marine resources, fishing last Friday. We went and tried to tag some flounder in the up in the Delta, and being on the boat with those 2 guys all day, you have kind of no choice but to talk about fishing and conservation and stuff all day, you know, because we all like talking about what we do for a living, I guess. And
oh yeah,
Scott Bannon, he was scared to death. He was going to get charged with murder because he left snapper season open while there was a hurricane in the Gulf, you know. And so he was talking about that. And what was funny about it is he's using real numbers to calculate how many pounds that we're actually taking out of our quota for the state. So, and that's the cool thing about Snapper Check, and why I encourage everybody to report their fish, is because you're getting real data and real numbers and real number of days of fishing for us in the future. So that being said, pretty much Saturday and Sunday last weekend were no-goes for just about everybody. I'd be real interested to know if anybody fished or anybody reported fish that day, because the winds were so bad.
They probably couldn't because they didn't survive to get back in to report it.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. But in what Scott was saying was, it kind of goes in our favor just to leave it open, because we get to say as a state, yep, we had more days of fishing, and it goes off of pounds. So that being said, that's where you see what the direction they've gone now. That came out yesterday, I believe, that we're going to have Saturday and Sunday season open, snapper season open, until the rest of the quota gets filled for the recreational sector. So, I mean, how much better can you ask for than that type of situation right there? They're just going to leave it open on the weekends until it's filled, and then we'll get a notification, and you'll see it on the news. Hey, it's filled, it's over with. You know, I mean, they're giving us every opportunity they possibly can to catch these fish, and saying. And also, too, Monday was a great day out on the water. I mean, you're in an offshore boat, you would have been just fine all day on Monday offshore.
Yep. I think that Snapper Check, and like you say, I think that's pretty awesome. And like I said, that's a testament to the state management, what those guys are doing up there. It's awesome. It's real live.
That's right. Another note I picked up on the boat while we were out there, Mr. Blankenship was talking about the reef endorsement that we're paying for every year, which is I guess it's $15 for a reef endorsement a year, and how much money that raised. And what they do with that money is they reinvest it back into getting good, solid data. And they use the C-Lab for that. And so the C-Lab just came out and kind of basically proved that the way NOAA's been doing things for a while, National Marine Fisheries, does not really add up with how a real survey has been done fishing our reefs in Alabama. And it also shows too that we have a lot more fish in Alabama than a lot of the other states around us, you know, because of our artificial reef system is unbelievable. It's the biggest in the world. So we've put all this habitat out there, and the fish are really thriving and jiving on it. Man, I'm just happy to have those guys where they are, because they're doing a jam-up job.
They are, dude. I'll tell you, and it's nice having, you know, the guys in that position to be from here. You know, Chris came up as a charter boat, working on a charter boat. He's a homeboy. I mean, he's from our area, so that helps out a lot too when you got those guys.
Pretty sure Chris worked on the Lady Ann for a while whenever I was growing up.
Yep. Yeah, he did. He was actually telling that story on the boat that he, when he was 15 years old, lived on Dolphin Island and rode his bicycle down to your dad's boat every day and went fishing. And he said he thought he was a rich man back then, you know. 15 years old working on a charter boat.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah, those are good. Yes, well, I'm glad we got those guys doing what they're doing, man, because it's evident, you know, with everything they've done, having to make those tougher decisions last year on the new inshore regulations and what they're doing with the reef program and the snapper fishery. Man, I just can't be happier to have. And the good thing about it is they're young guys too, so they're going to be around for a while unless one of them gets elected to be governor. I think that's about Chris's next step. So
yeah, he's up there.
Well, the bad news is
he'd get my vote.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The bad news is Scott Bannon was telling us on the boat the other day, he's only got 2 years before he hits his tenure. And man, he's talking about getting out of Dodge, man. So he's gonna go be like a Walmart. He's gonna go be a Walmart greeter or something as in retirement.
You know what? He says that, but I'll tell you something. I've been around him a little bit enough to know that he loves what he does.
It
man.
gets in your blood.
He's been military and law enforcement for a while. I don't know. I'd be surprised if I walk into Walmart, see him shaking hands. I'd be really shocked if he's not going to be around.
Yep, and I told him that on the boat the other day too. You know, so I'm 100% with you there, Bobcat. I think he's probably there to stay. He does such a great job.
He does, dude. Those are some sharp.
It's a lot. It's a lot being the director. You know, you got to play the public relations side, and you got to play the science side, and
then you got to listen. And he's got to listen to us. He's got to listen to us anglers whine and complain all the time.
I can't imagine having that job.
Yeah, and it's not just fish either. It's oysters. I mean, it's all kinds of stuff. You know, it's a tough job.
No doubt. All right, man. You got the Hey Cap question this weekend. We talked about snapper and ling a little bit. What else? You got any other thing to report? We talked about flounder a good bit. What else you got before we go on the Hey Cap question?
Man, I'm just really looking forward to this little bit of a cool down we got this week. I don't think it's going to make fish go full-fledged fall on us just yet, but after this little cool front, but man, it just keeps getting a little closer and a little closer. Water temperatures coming on down a little bit. I'm starting to get that itch a little bit, like it's about time just to go throw some plastic every day.
Yep, that upstate rain's chilling out a little bit, so I think things are shaping up for a nice Delta fall and winter. What you think?
Shh.
I know. Sorry,
I agree 100%.
I don't want to curse it.
Yeah, we don't want to.
All right, let's do the Hey Cap, man. This week's Hey Cap was brought to us by Daycool Heating and Air. As the saying goes, if you don't like the weather in South Alabama, wait 10 minutes because it's going to change. But one of the things that is very predictable is the pricing at Daycool Heating and Air. They offer flat rate pricing, and they don't charge for after-hours calls. Let's face it, your HVAC always seems to act up whenever you need it the most. Don't get stuck between a rock and a hot place. Daycool offers flat $45 service calls, $59 tune-ups, and they offer free estimates on equipment replacement. The pros at Daycool have been serving Mobile and Baldwin counties for over a decade. Contact them at 251-633-5121 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com or check them out on their Daycool Heating and Air app. License number AL07028. All right, Captain Blood. This week's Hey Cap question comes from Ben Caraway. He says, Hey Cap, with colder weather coming and the trout transitioning, what type of bottom depth and structure should be targeted to find fish? Or should we look for pogey and or mullet schools to fish the ledges where the bait fish are? What y'all think?
Yes.
All of the above?
All of the above. Yeah.
So my whole approach to fall in the weather cooling off, water temperature starting to chill off, is going to be that you're basically fishing the reverse of what happens in the spring, right? So in the spring, you got fish coming out of deep water up on the shallow water, and in the fall, going into winter, you have fish feeding in shallow water, retreating down into deeper water as it cools off. And when we say cool off, I don't think they're going to get down into that deeper water until we get like sometime into November, when we've had a couple of really good cold fronts. Like I'm talking about cold fronts where it gets down into the 30s for a night or two, and really starts cooling off that water temperature. You'd be real surprised how long it takes to really push those fish into deeper water. Back to, bottom type and structure and whatnot, I kind of get out of a structure mode this time of year, and I'm fishing more water depth. And a lot of it's just paying attention to the signs. Before they fall into the deeper water, you're fishing a lot of conditions. You are looking for mullet jumping, for pogies flipping. I always like to be seeing there's still a ton of shrimp in all the tidal rivers and up in the Delta right now. So you're going to be wanting to pay attention to seagulls and whatnot. When I say pay attention to seagulls, one seagull diving down and grabbing a shrimp out of somewhere can give away a freaking 100 speckled trout, where you can go and catch them till your arms fall off. So paying attention to those little details are definitely going to go a long way. You still want to be doing the same thing you're doing when you're talking about looking for pogies slipping and mullet jumping and stuff like that. You definitely want to be around life, kind of bringing all those things together. And the other thing too is paying attention, when you're transiting around in some of these rivers, paying attention to your bottom machine when you slow down and idle along. I mark speckled trout on my bottom machine all the time, run my side scan. And once you pay attention long enough and start fishing behind where you just kind of idle through or something, you'll really know what to start looking for. Bobcat, you got anything to add to that?
No, I'm sitting here nodding my head at every single thing you said. I'm going, that's exactly right. Everything you said is, one of the things you said is signs at this time of year being the fall, which is a mirror image of the spring. You mentioned that about the birds or a bird, just, bird activity is a big deal this time of year. And then another thing too is looking for those fish slicks, and those will really give fish away. And the only, on that thing, when you're fishing these flatsy areas that will fish during the fall, where you caught them today, probably ain't going to work the next day because those fish really stay on the move with that bait. So that's the only other thing I'd add to it. But the rest of the time I'm sitting here with Butch just nodding my head going, yep, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yep, just pay attention to the signs, man. Just
pay attention, yep.
You can't – I talk about reading water all the time. I can't help but just read. When I get around water, I don't care if I'm on a lake or a stream or a creek or whatever, I'm looking at the water. I'm looking for signs of activity. I can't help it and it really irritates my wife when she and I drive across the Bayway or something on I-10. They were going across, and I'll be looking out there, oh, babe, look, there's a slick over there. Oh, man, do you see those birds working? I wonder if something's going on over there. She's like, well, you stop looking at the water and drive, and
yep.
But you got to be reading the water and paying attention because it gives so much away, if you know what you're looking for. So that's real interesting. I can't wait to see it all come together. Hopefully here in the like I said, I don't think we're going to see it get crazy until probably sometime in the first to mid part of November, if I had to guess. That's usually, just generally speaking, thinking about the calendar, that's about when fall fishing kind of goes off, is when we get usually about second cold front we get where it gets real cold, either lower 40s, upper 30s, somewhere in there. That's generally what generally makes them kind of go off. We're talking about reading the signs too. When I was in catching fish in Dog River this morning, I did see a few seagulls diving up river, and I was thinking, I just said to myself, man, those look like shrimp right there, because they were those laughing gulls. Sure enough, when I was throwing my cast net, catching those pogies, I caught probably about 2 dozen shrimp in my cast net, out of about 6 or 7 times I threw the net this morning. So, there's a ton of life in those rivers. I don't think the fish are in there real thick just yet, but they can't be far behind.
No doubt. That's good stuff, man. That's a great question from Ben Caraway. We appreciate that. Ben's going to get a prize pack from the Slick Lure. Ben, make sure you email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com to redeem your Slick Lures. And Ben's following us over on the Best Fishing Report page, and he's a member of the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report private group. I have the same illness, Richard, about reading water and not being able to stop looking at water. It's very hard to work from here sometimes.
Yep. He's got a view. He has got a view at the Saltwater Fishing Report headquarters. He has definitely got the view.
That's right.
Man, I know. I'm always so jealous.
It's a shame that with this isn't a visual podcast. I can tell you right now, it's a view.
Yep.
The only downside of that is we'd have to look at you, Bobcat.
Well, that's true. There is that.
Come on.
Take the good with the bad.
Man.
Take the good with the bad.
Come on now. Well, Captain Richard, I know you're fishing a lot, man, but if folks want to get up with you and book a trip, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Man, my website is coldbloodedfishing.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and if you want to use the old landline or text me, it's 251-459-5077.
Awesome, buddy. We appreciate the report, and we look forward to talking with you next time. Keep whacking them.
All right, fellas. Take it easy. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Have a good one. All right, Captain Bobby. Always good to hear from old Captain Richard Rutland. He knows his stuff. Sounds like he's on them. Hopefully he can find those ling tomorrow.
That's right.
Get a couple tags in them for our research. Let's head on down to Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Fort Morgan. You never know what Chris Vecsey is going to be up to, but he's going to be at Sam's Bait and Tackle to get all that good information from him. What you say, Chris?
Man, I got all kinds of things to say.
Let's talk about Offshore a little bit, man. You are designated as the Offshore spot for today. Tell us a fish story.
my offshore fishing here lately has been a little limited, but
I think everybody's
as far as reports, as far as reports coming in the store, customers, guys were rigging up and stuff and kind of saying, hey, go here, do this. Wahoo bite's been phenomenal. We've had a pretty good I would say we've had one of the best wahoo bites this year, probably one of the best bites in 5-6 years, easily. And it seems like it's continuing. Water temperatures are favorable. We got some pretty clean water it's pushed in. I don't see it changing anytime soon. Further offshore, I have to imagine the tuna bite's going, but man, like you said, there's a lot of boats that got damaged. A lot of people are penned up with, obviously storm damage control. So there really has not been any kind of, concentrated effort on going out tuna fishing here lately.
Agreed. Unfortunately, hopefully things will kind of even out pretty soon. I hope.
Yeah, it should. I mean, there's still a lot of guys, Boggy Point boat launch has been open. A lot of the boat launches are starting to reopen. Quite a few people got out, got some snapper and triggerfish this week, and some bonus cobia. I heard there's quite a few cobia picked up on the nearshore reefs and stuff, even stuff like in on the trolling corridor, like 7.5, 8 miles out. Quite a few really solid cobia in the 40, 50 pound class caught. Bigger amberjacks have been in a little bit closer. The main thing there is, guys are asking me, we'll catch a bunch of amberjack on this stuff in 80, 90 feet, but they're all short. So they're right, right dead on. And I know I've touched on it in the past, on the show that, you got to get big, you got to get bigger baits. If you're going to fish that closer in structure, you got to fish bigger baits to cut through those undersized jacks. There are big AJs on those structures, but they're looking for primo baits, big vermilion snapper, ruby lips. I don't know if vermilion snapper are legal or not. I'll let that department deal with that. But my favorite thing, and everybody looks at me like I have two heads or like I'm crazy when I say it, but my favorite thing is a live bonita. If you can catch a bonita close by where you're going to jackfish, and nothing fancy, don't bridle him, take a big 12-aught wide gap hook, run it right through his upper jaw, clip on a 16 to 20 ounce bank weight, about 10 feet from him, and send him down. There's nothing that'll get a big amberjack better than that.
I said that last week, actually. We're talking to Delin Stickler over there. He runs trips out of Destin, Orange Beach, and a couple of different marinas over there, and I told him the same exact thing. Well, let's go back up a little bit and talk about Wahoo. What are the people that are coming in? Are they doing fast trolling? Are they – what's kind of getting the ticket for Wahoo right now?
It's a combination of both. And the thing about the fall – fall you've got a lot of options. I mean, you can fish them in on the ledge and shallow. You can obviously just cover it open water, and that's what a lot of the fish have been picked up this week. Been caught in just open water, trolling to and from bottom spot. Charboat guys are picking them up on their way out and on their way in. But guys that are focusing their efforts down, around the elbow, around the steps, nipple, they're being pretty consistent on them. And I think it's same with if I look back at my logs on September, October. I always do very well fishing around that 50 fathom ledge and staying relatively shallow, coming up 250, 240 feet, and then running back out the line to say 350, but staying, zigzagging right on the edge, not venturing out into just deep open water. That edge always holds bait.
Always.
A lot of time it does. Always does. And bait holds wahoo. I mean, they're just like any bigger species like king or Spanish mackerel. They're going to hang where the food is.
Yep, no doubt. I was texting Shane Toole earlier, Necessity, and he said he went 2 for 2 today on swords, and he was trying to catch a marlin at about 3 p.m. That's a pretty good day.
That's a pretty good day.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, what else, man? What about sword? Have you heard anything going on there?
I mean, everybody who's gone has done good. I was supposed to actually have a couple sword trips initially booked this week with customers, and problem is said customers can't get their boats.
Right.
It's not even that their boats are damaged, but they're trapped in a marina. So
Dang.
It's kind of that's where, like, when I say my offshore experience here lately has been kind of limited. It's not because we haven't had the weather, and it's not because the fishing isn't good. It's because we don't have boats.
Right.
So we can't get out there. So a lot of us have our hands tied right now, and that's just all there is to it. But this is, man, October, that is one of my favorite months offshore by far.
Yep, same. Agreed.
One thing I haven't heard much on, and I think, once again, it's just no concentrated effort. October is typically a really good month for white marlin. And I have no doubt. I haven't
heard much about whites
down there.
Yeah, me either.
No, I think it's just because, we've been caught in the storm stuff. Yeah, nobody's out there. I have to imagine if you went out and fished that, between the 1,500 fathom line, try to find those pockets of water that are actually a little bit cooler. if you can find a little temp break on it, a little bit of color change, that's usually magic this time of year. And I've kind of shifted the way I fish for white marlin over the last few years. If I go out there this time of year and there's going to be a relatively decent concentration of fish, I don't like pulling a big full spread of lures. I pull more teasers and very few hook baits and just wait to pitch to fish. Yeah. With whites in particular, you will land so many more white marlin if you control the bite and the hook set. And if you can get them fired up on that teaser, they'll usually stay there long enough for you to get effective bait to them.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like that's becoming newer here. And obviously, a lot of the tournament crews have been doing that for years here. But as far as the recreational side of it, I'm trying to introduce more of the small better guys into doing that, because you don't have a fly bridge. You can't see those fish very well. You need to tease them up, get it to where the fish is back there, and then drop a bait to them. Because if you're just doing drag and snag with lures, you're going to lose a lot of those fish.
Yeah, kind of hone in on what you're looking for. Make sure your 3 or 4 baits instead of 6 or 7 are exactly what you're looking for. I think that's a great tip.
Yep, I usually pull a couple dredges, whether they're strip dredges. I'm fishing small boats, so I'm not pulling these big 2-3 tier monstrosities that you need an LP and a pulley system to pull.
Right.
I'm pulling smaller dredges that are effective from a smaller boat, and I'm usually pulling 2 squid chains, one off each rigger. I put a bait down on the center, and I usually have a couple baits in on the riggers. 3 hook baits is all I ever pull if I'm white marlin fishing. I want to get those fish fired up. I don't want them to just grab whatever and run with it, because you're going to lose a lot of them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, maybe we can get some folks out there soon and get a white marlin update. I would love that for sure.
Absolutely.
I saw Mr. Vecsey this morning. What are we going to call this? The brackish water slam? Is that what we're going to call it?
I don't know
what happened this morning. The perfect storm.
I don't know what it was.
Tell us a little bit about it, man.
Right,
let's hear your story.
Well, all right. So this weekend, I've had this sinus crud and everything else. I've been under the weather. I've been sleeping. I've been in a medication-induced coma. And finally, yesterday, I started feeling really good. Went to the doctor, got a steroid shot, got an antibiotic. I mean, I was amped. And,
all jacked up.
I couldn't sleep last night, so I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to load the kayak up and I'm going to go fishing. And I went to a couple of my, let's just say, undisclosed locations. We kind of talked about that before recording.
Yeah. Even I can't get your good spots. That's fine. I get it.
But look, I fish in Baldwin County, so you can use your imaginations. Anyway, I launched about 3:30 this morning. Figured I was going to have a couple hours of fish in the dark for stripers and things like that, some of these deep holes in some of these creeks. I pretty much just pick a few game plans and just kind of went with it. And it was one of those trips where, man, you talk about puzzle pieces just falling right where they're supposed to go. I ended up catching 9 stripers. I got a 30-inch striper on the fly rod, the biggest one I've caught on fly. Early this morning, the reds started biting. I got 9 reds, mostly lower slot, but I did have one that was 31 inches that mixed in, so that was a nice little bonus. I had an 18 and a 21-inch trout. I went up this little side creek and actually caught 2 nice bass. I was really looking for more redfish and ended up catching these 2 nice bass, probably about 3 pounds, kind of round out that little slam. But seeing what I had in the bag between the trout, the reds, the striper, bass now, I was like, surely we can add a 5th species here. And I have located here lately some good little groups of juvenile tarpon fish from anywhere from 2 to 15 pounds. I was like, man, it's getting late in the morning, but screw it. I started trekking about 2 to 3 miles from where I was when I caught those bass. And first creek I went into, nothing, just a bunch of gars rolling around. There's no tarpon in there. Second creek, I just kind of hunkered down, got quiet. Sometimes you get in there, even in the kayak, as quiet as the kayak is, sometimes that motion through the water will spook those fish. But I came up in there, I got quiet, had a few fish roll in front of me, and then I had this near 40-inch, 15-plus pound fish roll right in front of me. And, I mean, I'd just been stripping the fly line off the reel, getting ready for a cast if I needed to take one. I dropped the fly right on top of him. He started waking on it, following it, and then ate it right at the rod tip. And gave me a good show, bunch of jumps, good runs, and I'm just knowing I'm going to lose this fish. I've got 15-pound tippet on there. I just know I'm going to lose him. And by some miracle, after about probably 8 to 10 minutes on the fly rod, I had him in hand. I don't think I could duplicate that slam if I wanted to, here's the funny thing about it is you look at striped bass and tarpon. You have a fish that loves really cold water and a fish that loves really hot water, and to catch the two in the same day period on the same trip is just crazy in itself, and then get
from a
two
kayak.
of decent size. And from a kayak, yeah. So I was on cloud 9 all morning. I'm actually still really.
I'm sure you still are. Yeah.
Dude, you had a lifetime worth of fishing for most people in a day, dude. I mean, that's incredible. That's insane,
it
man.
is.
And Butch and I, when you said you just threw something out there, which you do, seems like when I'm on here with you, I hear these things out of you all the time. Butch and I did it at the same time when you said, well, I paddled 2 or 3 miles, and Butch and I both looked at each other, started shaking it, going like, Jesus Christ, this guy is something right here.
Where's the throttle on this thing?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Hey, I got a 2 or 3 mile run in my boat. It takes 10 minutes. I still have to think about it a little bit.
That's right. And I get tired from that.
Yeah, I'm going, yeah.
Awesome.
You know what's funny? What's funny is, I mean, I have a beautiful custom flat skiff sitting in my driveway, but depending on where I'm fishing, the kayak just makes so much more sense. It's so much quieter for getting some of these spots.
Well, it dang sure did today. That's for sure, dude.
It worked.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Congratulations. That is some kind of day right there, dude.
Sick,
That's
man.
really impressive.
What kind of kayak were you using this morning, Chris?
I've got a few, but today I've got an Old Town Topwater, which is now called a Sportsman. They kind of rebranded it, but it's a pedal drive. It's short though. It's only like 10.5 feet, but it's about 35 inches wide. I mean, I could stand up and dance in this thing. So sight fishing, standing and fly fishing, all that kind of stuff is very effective out of it. It's kind of become my favorite little boat. I mean, there's days where I look at my skiff and then I look at the kayak and I'm like, I'm just gonna take the kayak.
That's awesome, man.
So it's a great little boat. I really love it.
Well, congratulations on your awesome morning, man. That's epic.
I want to say one thing about a kayak, and this might not surprise you, but this blew me away. I was coming in yesterday, and tell me I didn't see this, but I saw a guy, and it wasn't a 10-foot kayak, Chris. This was, I mean, I'm saying it was less than
a monstrosity.
He had dude, he had did I see an iPilot trolling motor on this guy's kayak?
I've seen him. Oh, yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't an iPilot the same trolling motor? I couldn't believe it. I was going I had to do a double take.
Was it on the back of it, or was it?
No, it was on the bow. It was on the bow.
I've seen him on the front.
And he had it on what I'm assuming he had it on spot lock because he was at the mouth of Bala Battery in 14 feet of water. And
just chilling.
He was sitting there, and I didn't see an anchor. I don't know if he had an anchor or not, but I didn't see an anchor line. But he had his trolling motor deployed, and I assume he had it on spot lock. I'm going like, you got to be kidding, dude. Just go buy a boat. I mean, come on.
Well, at that point, you got $5 or $6 grand in a kayak.
I mean, but and I'm thinking to myself, even if he's taking a 24-volt trolling motor and running it just with, he's still got to have a 12-volt battery on that boat, to run the trolling motor.
Yeah.
And,
which, I mean, nowadays they have like the lithium-ion batteries that are obviously a lot lighter, but
yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that. The Old Town actually has a model called Autopilot. Autopilot in the console area, like down near your feet, they actually have an incorporated iPilot troll motor. So you can put this thing in the water. I mean, it holds you dead on top of a spot. It's actually pretty cool. But it's about $4,000 a kayak. So you got to decide which route you want to go.
You got to be committed to kayak fishing at that point.
Well, and this guy, I mean, I can tell you something. I'm assuming this guy launched there at the ramp in the bayou, and he was literally at the mouth of the bayou, and he didn't do one of your 2 or 3 mile paddles. You know what I'm saying? This guy went maybe 50 yards at the most. But I just was thinking to myself, so why the heck's he even got a paddle if he's got an iPilot? He could just troll around on that thing, So
I don't know,
man. It kind of blew me away. I've seen the micro pole, the power pole micro poles on them. That doesn't surprise me. I think it'd be super, super handy on a kayak, But
I've seen
I'm talking about a saltwater series Riptide white trolling motor on this bow. This guy's kayak, dude. And if it was a 10-foot kayak, that was all it was. I can tell you, it didn't even look that big.
You get that thing up on plane.
I'm telling you, man. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome, Chris. We appreciate it.
Everybody likes to deck them out.
That's right. You got to get the best and the baddest for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. Now we got to get that tip from you. I guess we're going to do an offshore tip. This week's offshore tip is brought to us by Fishbites. Are you tired of scrambling for bait whenever you decide to go fishing? Have an artificial bait that's better than live bait, ready to go at a moment's notice with Fishbites. It's easy to pack and travel with and shelf stable, and not to mention tough. With Fishbites, The bait stays on the hook and the fish stay on the bait. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits and tackle at fishbites.com. What you think for a tip this week, Chris?
I think I've got a couple of them because, we're talking about, it's October. We always talk about transitions inshore this time of year, October, November, and I feel like we always miss offshore transitions at the same time.
Yep.
Because it's not like the water temperature is only dropping inshore, it's dropping offshore as well. And the thing about that is that actually you can look at it as the beginning of the end, when your pelagic's closer to shore, going to kind of start, that's going to start fading out. At the same time, it's just like cold front trout. It's going to push favorable water conditions to where you can narrow down your search. And especially if you're using satellite service like Hilton's, finding, ideal conditions pretty easy. And so like we were talking about wahoo, I don't head offshore until I look and I can get a decent shot where I can see water temperature breaks, color changes, and then of course you always try to see favorable altimetry. But I'd say October, November, fishing for wahoo, a temperature break is the greatest thing you can find out there, and a lot of time it will coincide with the those ledges we were talking about that hold all that bait. A lot of time they will be along those ledge systems inshore, the 30 fathom ledge kind of southeast of the pass, the nipple, the elbow. If you can find a temperature break, even if I think everybody always thinks it needs to be this big 5-6 degree thing, it doesn't. It can be a fraction of a degree, but usually 1 to 2 degrees is more than enough to hold bait and concentrate fish to it. It's like vertical structure at that point. So, always keep an eye on temperature breaks. Always watch your temperature gauge when you're out there trolling. Even if you didn't come across a well-defined line, keep tabs on your temperature because you'll be going. It'll be, you'll be in this, water's in the upper 60s and all of a sudden you hit 71, 72. You mark that and you try to find out where that line is and go back and troll it. That's money in the bank wahoo fishing in the fall for sure. The other thing I was going to touch on was sword fishing. The daytime thing can be pretty consistent at consistent depths, where you were catching them most of the summer in, say, 1,500 feet. You can still catch them in the same depths, through the fall. I do generally start moving further west this time of year, and I do start moving a little bit shallower. I catch more of my fish in, say, sometimes 1,000 to 1,200 feet. In the fall. And then for the guys that are still going out nighttime fishing, which there are still a lot of guys nighttime sword fishing, and especially if you're fishing tuna and stuff and then coming in from the rigs, I like setting up super shallow if I'm going to fish at night. Whereas the daytime I might be fishing 1,000 to 1,200, nighttime I'm going to fish 500 to 700 because those shelves this time of year along the steps in particular just start stacking with bait. Loads of squid. You'll see fine schools of goggle eyes, mackerel. All kinds of stuff is just congregating on that. You're also more effective at covering the actual column. If you're setting out 4 or 5 lines, or even let's say 2 or 3 lines at night, and you're in 1,200 feet of water, you're looking at your thermoclines and stuff, but you look at the scheme of things, you're not covering a very effective column of water. There's a lot of water that you have not placed a bait near.
Oh yeah.
When you're fishing 500 to 700 feet, you can cover almost all the water column, if not at least half to 2/3 of it. So I've done very well in the fall fishing shallow for swords. I've caught them as shallow as just above 300 feet, but that magic depth usually is 500 to 700 from now through, say, the end of November.
That's awesome, man. Those are some really great tips. Awesome report, man. Again, congratulations on your brackish water slam, I guess we're going to call it.
Second that, man. That's fabulous.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Congrats. And,
it was quite a morning.
Yeah, no doubt, man. If people want to come in and pick your brain or talk to you about fishing, where can they find you?
Down here at Sam's, 27122 Canal Road. We're open 7 days a week from 5 to 9 p.m. I'm here Wednesday through Saturday. Mark is here Sunday through Thursday, and then Dusty is here. When is Dusty here? Friday through Wednesday. I'm still getting used to Dusty being here. Even though
Me too.
For a few months now.
I know.
But
me too.
yeah, we're open. We're open every day. One of us is always here to give you a hand, answer questions. Hook you up, and more importantly, is put you on some fish. We like to see our customers come back, pictures of fish. So
absolutely, we appreciate you taking care of our listeners, man, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy. Awesome report. Thanks again.
All right, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Captain Bobby was a pleasure you being here with me today, co-hosting, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, shoot, it's always a lot of fun. I sit here and I look at the view, and you got a clock. Actually, you can't help it. Every once in a while, it's just hard to believe how fast the time goes by, dude. I mean, it's just hard to believe that we've been talking. I guess that's what happened when you're having fun.
That's
right.
That
time goes by fast.
No doubt.
Even looking at the clock, I'm going like, wow, I cannot believe it. But man, that is some kind of fun. I enjoy it. And I appreciate you having me.
Good, man. We appreciate you. We got to do What Did You Learn? This week's What Did You Learn is brought to us by Test Calibration. Is your diesel engine showing signs of low power or excessive engine smoke? If so, you may be in need of a repair to your diesel fuel injection system. Test Calibration has been selling and servicing diesel turbochargers and fuel injection systems since 1976 and are up to date with all the latest diesel technology. No matter if you're running a diesel in your truck, boat, or tractor, Test Calibration can help you. Contact them at 800-822-0057 or visit them online at testcalibratindieselandturbo.com. What'd you learn this week, Captain Bobby?
Well, I'll tell you, starting out with Dusty, I just one of the things that I just found interesting, and I always do, and I don't know if it's as much as learning as I just get fascinated by how well those guys understand how to move down that beach. To me, it's being a boat fisherman.
Or just fish the beach in general.
Fish the beach in general, and to being a boat fisherman, a move for me is easy. Those guys
pack up
really
all
have
your cart, pack up all your
they
crap.
Pack, so you better be dialed into what you're doing. And so that's so we were talking about just moving to find clear water. To me, again, I don't know if as much as I learned is just as much as I'm fascinated by it. But that's another thing this report brings to the listeners is that kind of knowledge, and picking up on things like that. And then certainly with Richard, and him and I had talked about this before we did this report, but using pogies for those flounder and not trout or opportunistic feeders, or as our redfish. Redfish will eat anything, trout will too. But the point I'm making is with pogies being available like that, if you're a bait fisherman and they staying alive like he was talking about, and then staying active on the hook. He was talking about flounder, but you could plug that right into any of your inshore species of fish.
Oh, yeah.
So now you got something that's accessible. If you can even he was throwing an 8-foot net, but, even just a 5-foot net, you don't need to like he talked about blacking out the live well. You need to catch 30, 40, 50 pogies if they'll live.
Sure.
That's an easy cast if you hit the school right.
Even if you catch 10, that could make your day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then on top of that, if you're a bait fisherman, and you're buying bait, you'll know how expensive that bait is.
No doubt.
One of the things that happens with inshore species, particularly trout, they eat shrimp year round, but pogies is another species. Another prey that they're on year round because it's available to them. Croakers, they eat those only during the summer. You can put a croaker out during the winter, it'll die old age for a trout will eat it, So, but pogies, if they're available to you, it's something. So that's really interesting to learn, not just about the fishing, which was the information you were talking about with the snapper spots he had that moved.
Oh, yeah.
That was very, very interesting, especially to a close-in snapper fisherman like me. I don't even consider myself a snapper fisherman yet, but I'm getting there, man. Thanks to you. Thanks to you and JoJo helping me out. But anyway, that was great information. And then certainly, with Chris, again, getting kind of back to the things that really are impressive. I
don't even know how to address what Chris did today.
You can't, you got to really appreciate that to do what he did, period. But then to say he did it all out of a kayak and and that's wanting to catch him and doing it at 3:00 in the morning. And the other thing, and again, he threw this in like he does because it's second nature to him. He threw it in just kind of like, no big deal. No big deal.
Right.
But he said, I'm going to go do this. He said, I'm going to go target this, and this, and went and did it. That's really impressive when you can do that. You get a guy, my flounder fishing, for example, I ain't targeted flounder. If I catch one, it's show enough luck. You know what I'm saying? But he went and specifically with his fly rod in his kayak went and did that. So that's some pretty impressive stuff. Now you and him, when y'all got going on that offshore stuff, I had to kind of just sit back and listen.
Glaze over.
But yeah, you guys were just so great because you were talking about thermoclines and water temperature, changes and how to.
He knows his stuff.
Oh yeah, and you're right there with him. You're going like you knew exactly what knew exactly what you were talking about. So it's such a great thing that you got going with the saltwater fishing report to where if you're interested in doing saltwater fishing, you got to listen to this thing, man.
You can cut the curve by years.
Oh, dude, there is so much information.
Years.
I'm sitting here listening for the couple hours or whatever that we've been doing this thing. I can't tell you how much I've learned, So, yeah. And if you can teach an old dog like me new tricks, you've really impressed something.
Start listening early. And
That's exactly right.
Man, whenever Chris started talking about the awesome things he did today and that he does in general, it brings me to not a new appreciation, but reappreciation kind of where we freaking live.
Oh,
man.
yeah, that's a great point.
Joe and I talk all the time about not many places. Well, if there is, I don't know because I've never lived there, I guess. But I lived in a couple of different places, Virginia, et cetera, where you can go shoot Boone and Crockett deer in the morning and come down here and catch a swordfish or a blue marlin in the afternoon.
That's right.
It's incredible.
It is. And I'll tell you something. I've had the opportunity to fish along the Gulf, from South Florida to South Texas and on the East Coast and, all inshore saltwater fishing. And we do have a great place to live.
We do, man.
And I don't even hunt, but I know exactly what you're talking about. People talk about our Alabama hunting too, so it's we do have a great place to live here. And
you can do it all, man.
You can do it all,
bass,
dude.
Bass to billfish, like Chris just said.
Yeah. And the other theme that went through all three reports was everybody kept talking about this fall fishing that we're starting to get into, and it's only going to get better. So we even got that to look forward to, So so all good, man. Yeah, right. Echoing everything you said.
Yeah, setting up right for a decent delta. Let's hope for that this winter.
You're right.
I have to get on some of that.
It's going to happen.
I've never got on it when it's been good.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
All right, Captain Bobby, we appreciate you. I don't know how your bookings are looking, but if folks want to get a trip with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
It's ateamfishing.com is the website. It's the easiest way. It's got our phone number on there, and then you can do there's a little form submission on there. You can go ahead and request your dates. We get them both ways. And, one of the things about fall and winter fishing, it's a little more tide sensitive, so we can help you out with picking the right tides if you have that option. Sure. I get plenty of people that say, I want to go on so-and-so date, and that's the day we go, and we can make it work. But if you really want to kind of hedge your bet and really see what happens in some of these river systems during the fall and winter, that's where we can sit down. And we can't predict the weather, obviously, but we can tell you what the tides are going to be and help you out with that. So that's the easiest way to do it. Just hit us on the website. Yeah,
it's cool that you mentioned that because whenever we went and caught that swordfish with Richard over there, we had an earlier date in August that got botched. And so we contacted Captain Adam Peoples, the swordfish guru over there, and we said, all right, when do we need to go? What is the best moon cycle?
Yeah.
What is the best? And he told us that day, and it paid off. So I can appreciate that.
That's a good thing from that's, the solar side and from the tidal side, we can predict that. Again, you can't predict the weather, but we can at least tell you. And the good thing,
your best chance anyways. That's right.
Still can't help you with the weather, but we can help you with
no doubt. Or the fish.
Fish, that's right.
Can't make the fish bite. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up this week. You guys, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like us to email you the podcast each week, just text the word fishing to 314-665-1767. Again, just text fishing to 314-665-1767 to subscribe to our email list, and we'll send you the show each week. You guys keep whacking them. We'll see y'all next week.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo Depaola, the Coastal Connection with EXP Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo Depaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
Also brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Did you know you could save up to 40% on your homeowner's insurance with a fortified roof? Learn more at fortifiedroofingpros.com or call them at 251-973-9999. Also brought to you by Hilton's Real-Time Navigator, bringing you the highest quality online satellite fishing chart since 2004. Your source for sea temps, altimetry, currents, and watercolor at hiltonsoffshore.com.
And also KillerDock. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at KillerDock.com. That's KillerDock.com.
Also brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at CCAAlabama.org. Also brought to you by MDH Foundation Repair. If your home is experiencing foundation problems, MDH Foundation Repair has the best solutions to fix it right and fix it now and protect your most important asset, your home. Check them out at mdhfoundationrepair.com.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Captain Bobby Abruscato, and A-Team Fishing Adventures. If you want to get in touch with us, book a trip, or just pick up some information, check out our website, which is www.ateamfishing, all one word, ateamfishing.com. You can book a trip there or get some great information.